Our adventure continues with Constantine waking up in the Sleeping Giant Inn. Finally rested from her encounter at the Ember Shard mine, it was now time to continue on to Falkreath.
Of course.
The Jarl wanted to see her personally, and she needed to get some sort of base of operations so far south in Skyrim. After a quick chat with the barkeep, she was on her way out. It was a clear and sunny day, truly the perfect traveling weather. Now, she had the general idea of where Falkreath would be, but she was still going to follow the signs as necessary. As Constantine's pace quickened from Riverwood, she came upon 3 standing stones. She'd learned about these on her travels, knowing there was something like 12 of them scattered throughout the land. She made a mental note to try to visit all of them. As she examined each one, she noticed they had a necklace almost floating in them. She picked all of them up, of course. She also chose to accept the sign of the thief. Now, note, this isn't the sign she was actually born under. That would be the sign of the lady. But if the legends were true, by choosing this sign, her abilities in sneaking and archery would somehow potentially increase at a quicker rate. Now, did she fully believe these legends? Maybe, maybe not, but she's traveled well across Tamriel and has seen a lot of things, so she might as well believe it. She continues to follow the signs to Falkreath, until she stops and smells smoke. Constantine's no idiot. Smoke means fire, and considering she saw no blaze, it means there's a camp nearby. This far in the wilderness, it was either a hunter's camp or a bandit camp. With no idea which it was, she approached very carefully. It was a bandit camp. Most hunters she had seen don't look the way these did. Bandits are bad news, and considering she was the only one out here, it was her job to make sure they didn't get to see their next sunrise. She approached quietly and softly, dropping the first bandit. She was then spotted by another archer, who, after a quick little shoot-off, she came out on top. The problem was, she then got rushed by a third as she was sort of regaining her bearings. Although this bandit was just a little bit too confident. Constantine switched from bow to blade and made mincemeat of the bastard. Recognizing that the coast was now clear, she looted the corpses for anything of value. The reality was these were pretty poor bandits, they didn't have much, but they were treasure hunting bandits. She found a treasure map on one of them and it seemed like it was relatively close by. Well, they were dead, so I mean, you know, they didn't need it anymore. Constantine continued down the road, but came upon another small town. Now, the town from a distance had nothing of note immediately, and she would probably just quickly pass through it. But what caught her eye was the crypt and skeletons. Drawing her bow, she got closer to the weird sight, and yet nothing attacked her. Here, she meets Carmilla, a mildly arrogant magician, but, you know, then again, find us a mage who isn't at least a little arrogant. See, Carmilla was interesting. She made an offer to teach us, and then stated she wasn't taking on apprentices, so that was just horribly rude. Is it worth a knife in the back? No, but we're inching closer. Now, Carmilla is claiming that she practices conjuration and necromancy, not for the art of war, but just for art. Constantine was never great at art, but she recognizes insanity when she sees it. Now, that being the case, she was unaware of any bounty, and clearly Carmilla was not hurting anybody. I mean, she assumed, and her only crime was probably just grave desecration, but she'd committed worse, so who was Constantine to judge? Now, it was sorta time to leave. Carmilla was not freaking her out a little bit, but definitely gave weird vibes that she was just not having. Constantine walks away, letting Carmilla to do her thing, but we'll be keeping an eye on her. The moment a bounty is placed, Constantine is taking it. She passes through the town of Oakwood and stops at a few places to pick up some smithing supplies, but otherwise she just sort of beelines it through the town. As she continues onward, though, she gets lost in thought. Honestly, what would a Jarl want with her, at least right now? She'd only been in Skyrim for about a month, and while she had completed a few contracts and removed the Black Blood Marauders, she was wondering what it is she did to capture his attention. She hoped it wasn't for anything weird. There was one encounter she remembers back in Cyrodiil where a noble had called on her on the pretense of an assignment, but it turned into him trying to set her up with his son. The thing was, the son was already happily married, and the noble just didn't like the match and believed the wife to be, quote-unquote, below his son. I don't know if the father actually knew that Constantine was also, quote-unquote, lowborn, but not the point. Instead, the son offered Constantine a contract, like a real one. Make his father's death look like an accident, and he would pay her weight in gold. She agreed, of course. What did she care about the world of patricide and nobles? Gold was gold. During a large banquet that evening, she had poisoned his food, dropping him on the spot. She remembers the very cold look in the son's eyes as he called the guards, claiming he knew who had killed his father. Anger enveloped Constantine that night as she fled the scene. She stalked the son for a week. Every day, every hour, learning his patterns. He thought he was safe, got all his father's money, and had to pay no one to do it. The son learned real quickly, but too late, to always pay your debt to Constantine. Thankfully, the now wife, or the widow's wife, was a little more pragmatic and paid Constantine her due. What does all of this have to do with the Jarl of Falkreath? Well, A, she has no desire to marry anybody, and she will kill him if necessary. After a brief stop at a small crypt with absolutely no good loot, she finally makes it to Falkreath, where she is stopped by a guard, asking if she had seen a dog on the road. The guard said that the local blacksmith was looking for one, so this will definitely be something worth checking out later because, well, if he wants something, he's willing to pay for it. As we enter the town, this is where we meet the ex-Thalmor Justiciar, Jarl. Constantine approached her not out of malice, but curiosity, and she was immediately hostile, stating she had no desire for a duel, which was fine. Constantine had no reason to fight her. This is where we learn she used to be a Justiciar. It's not normal that the Thalmor kick out Justiciars, so Constantine was just kind of naturally curious. Now, Jarl continues to be an arrogant asshole, and this is when the conversation turns odd. See, Constantine was curious as to why she was kicked out of the Thalmor. The answer she got, she had no words.
It is a rather simple matter. I disobeyed a direct order from my superior. I was stationed in Markarth with 2 others. We were investigating a family that kept abnormal hours, staying up well past midnight. Unfortunately, myself and one of the other justiciars got into an argument over the children. The fool thought they were innocent. They were future rebels. The moment we arrested their parents, they would forever despise us. The wisest course was to execute them. The issue was made irrelevant, however, when the entire family was found murdered. That is insignificant. The family was dead and no longer worships Talos. Moreover, by letting a murderer run amok, we prevented the family from becoming martyrs. There was just one problem. Everyone assumed I was the murderer. It didn't help that I've been a rather vocal proponent of mass execution. So we decided it was best to use this perception to our advantage. Now, I never confessed to the crime, but I was stripped of my rank and exiled. This gave the perception that justice was served.
She assumed killing children was the way to go and a vocal proponent for mass murder? Holy shit! She also said this with glee. Jarlath would die. This was not up for debate. Jarlath would die. She was not under the protection of the Thalmor anymore, so them coming after her, probably not going to happen. And getting rid of someone who argued for the murder of children based on a what if? Well, okay. They deserve to be placed 6 feet under. The issue right now is that it was too public. She couldn't kill her now, even if she wanted to. No. This needed to be done right. While Constantine thought of ways to put Jarlath into a permanent sleep, she finally headed to the Jarl's longhouse. Here, she met Jarl Siggeir, who stated he needed some help with an assignment. Apparently, some local bandits he had been working with stopped paying. It was our job to go clear them out. She chuckled to herself that, of course, the most powerful man in the province was using bandits to line his pockets a little bit. Power never changes. But hey, most powerful man in the province probably also had some deep pockets, and he seemed shrewd enough not to screw her over. She immediately set out to complete her task. As she left, though, she came across one of the other adventurers she had seen in the Longhouse. He had the most wild armor on him, and it had to be a custom enchantment. There's no other way. She could clearly see, through the armor. Constantine wondered if he used it as a way to, scare his targets by pretending to be a phantom, but in any case, she passed him by quickly enough and moved on. The evening air was still until it was broken by a horrifying scream and a man literally falling out of the sky. Now, Constantine approached the very dead man and was impressed at the strange device that she had found next to him. According to the journal on his body, he was attempting to learn to fly. Like a bird. Like in the sky. That absolutely absurd. But he came from the sky, so maybe she would follow the instructions in the journal at some point. Also, she saw the weird adventurer again, so I don't know if she's being followed. But more to the flying man in the sky, she might follow those instructions at some point. This is where her night just keeps getting weirder and weirder. She crested a hill after she saw a ruin, only to find a man trapped in a bear trap. First men falling from the sky, now them trapped in bear traps. He was immediately hostile, which, bold choice for someone stuck in a trap. But upon recognizing that we were not some Thalmor agent, he requested our assistance in pulling him free. The man actually becomes quite amicable upon recognizing we're going to free him. Constantine always appreciates a quick about face when people realize she isn't actually whoever they think she is. She frees the man and gets him out of the trap. The man introduced himself as Gore. Weird name, but hey, no shame.
Tell you about it later.
He was pretty badly wounded and requested we assist him in getting to Falkreath. It wasn't too far, and Constantine would easily be able to get him there and then turn back around and deal with the bandits, so she agrees. As the two make to leave, they are immediately set on by Thalmor agents. The Thalmor did not come to chat, and there was nothing that could be done besides stand our ground and kill the Thalmor. Constantine has no issue with the Thalmor right now, though from her conversations with Jarlath and now this, she is starting to strongly dislike them. After the attack, Constantine parted ways with Gore. He had stated he was interested in being a companion, but right now Constantine just had no desire for companionship. He seemed nice enough though, so there's a potential for friendship there. She now just needed to finish the Jarl's assignment. As she approached Pinewatch Bridge, it appeared quiet, and that strange adventurer was walking away. She saw a few bodies but had little time to think about what she was seeing as a rock trap fell. She then realized there was nobody around and put two and two together. The adventurer must have overheard the Jarl give us the assignment and did it himself, trying to win favor. Constantine turned around and put him down. No way she was going to let some upstart take her bounty. He might have taken the kill, but she'd take the reward. There was one bandit left, which she quickly dispatched. After looting all the bodies and the bridge itself, she turned back towards the corpse of the honor stealer and burned his body. Best to make it as unrecognizable as possible, and with it already being buried in the brush, it should be relatively difficult to find. The trip back to Falkreath was uneventful, and it was already night, so she assumed the Jarl would be asleep at this point. She instead chose to make a run to the inn. While there, she picked up two notes that were near the barkeep. One of them appeared to be addressing a threat near Peakshade Tower about slaughtered Thalmor and an alleged blade. Not really sure where Peakshade Tower is, but if it's a bounty and a contract, then there's definitely money involved. No idea what a blade member is, though, but it was getting late and she really needed to get to sleep. It was morning now, just before 6 a.m., and it was finally time to get back to the Jarl. Let him know his little side issue was dealt with. Of course, we are going to make sure the Jarl is unaware of the tamperer that attempted to get between us. We approach and let him know that the bandits have now and finally been dealt with. And just like that, the Jarl pays us some nice gold. See, it's really not that hard to pay us, you know? He also gives us the ability to buy property in the hold, which is exactly what Constantine was looking for. A solid base of operations in the south of Skyrim that is away from prying eyes. He also gives us the opportunity to potentially become a Thane in the hold of Falkreath. Now, this is something that Constantine had not thought about, or even was a possibility, but the thought of being a Thane and having that power, she likes that. She might stick around in Falkreath a little bit to see what she can do to be able to become said Thane.
On your way then.
Heading to the steward, we're told that there's no actual housing for sale, but that there is a piece of land for 5,000 gold. Constantine's never actually been a landowner before, and she just simply assumes it will require her to build her own house. But she's nothing if not pragmatic and skilled, so she takes the land and heads out to see where the property is. She arrives at her parcel of land and just already loves it. Lakeview Manor is the name of the plot, and it's everything she could have asked for. It's secluded and away from people. She can use it as a fantastic location for adventure planning, storage, and, most importantly, the study of magic. Through her time in Skyrim, she's learned the Nords aren't the most friendly when it comes to magic, and while she can study here and there, having this house completely away from everyone else is perfect. She also wants to start working on perfecting more potent poisons, and while it's not illegal to make poisons, if you make them in public, you probably won't get the best reputation. So this kind of solves all her problems at once. So with that, she gets to building right away. With the basic house complete, she adds a small garden to grow some ingredients, and would later head inside to actually start, with furnishing the house. Now, the house isn't livable yet. There's not a bed or chairs, anything like that. She still needs many more sort of supplies, but she fully intends to come back and finish the house before setting off from Falkreath. It's important to her that this location is up and running before continuing. With that, though, she heads back to Falkreath proper to finally talk with the blacksmith about a missing dog. She assumes that by helping the blacksmith, that will be one of the individuals needed to vouch for her when it comes to becoming a Thane in the Hold. Finding the blacksmith, Laud, he tells us he saw a stray dog that he would like as a pet. I guess having an apprentice isn't enough. Constantine isn't sure about finding a random dog in the woods to bring back, but she assumes, it can't actually be that difficult, and on top of it, he's willing to pay. So she accepts, and she starts the mighty quest for the lost dog. After the interaction, she notices all the guards are running towards the front of the gate. Imagining a horde of bandits, wolves, or spriggans, she joins the fray, only to be disappointed by the fact that it's one bandit, and not even a strong one at that. Excessive use of force if she's ever seen it, but hey, whatever. After the excitement, her eyes turn back towards the road, ready to find a dog. Running along the path, it isn't far until Constantine finds the dog, who immediately starts talking to her. Alright, she's gonna try not to freak out and just listen to what the dog has to say and assume she hasn't lost her mind.
You see, my name is Barbas, and I have a problem I think you can help sort out. My master and I had a bit of a falling out. We got into an argument and it got rather heated. He's kicked me out until I find someone who can settle our disagreement.
Apparently, he was, or is, the companion to the Daedric Prince Clavicus Vile. And now the dog, Barbas, wants our help with settling some type of dispute between the two, but we have to travel to a special shrine, since his power has now significantly waned.
Thank you. Now, since he banished me, Vile's been rather weak. He can't manifest very far from one of his shrines. I know there's a cult that worships him at Hamar's Shane. We should be able to talk to him there. If this works out, I'll make sure you're rewarded. You just don't trust any offer he makes you, okay?
As we follow Barbas, Constantine starts to think to herself, man, she really stepped in it this time. She's never dealt with any of the Daedric princes before, and for the longest time has been trying hard not to deal with them. But if she had to, Vile isn't the worst one to begin with. Now, Barbas' warning still rings in her ears, though, of don't trust any deal he makes her. She will need to keep this in mind, but also not directly go against anything the prince says. It's better to screw the Daedric princes out of their own game than necessarily outright refuse them. Now, Vile, in this case, is weaker because Barbas is no longer with him, but what weaker means in this context, it's anyone's game. While they travel, the two come across a nice, quaint little town, Helgen. Barbas seems unwilling to move anywhere inside. Constantine thinks he senses something here. It's not important for now, but she will have to come back and check out what's going on. Dogs and most animals can sometimes sense danger before it happens, and his near outright refusal to move unless consistently pushed along gives her cause for concern. She finally does get him to leave the town, and they continue onwards. A little farther up the road, they run into an ambush. Now, the ambush wasn't left for them, but that didn't matter, because the bandits that took out the caravan wanted to increase their ill-gotten gains, so they attacked Constantine and Barbas. They died efficiently and quickly, but this is when Constantine noticed Barbas' unique talent. Now, whether Barbas knows he has this or not, we're unsure. See, Barbas can't get hurt, and he seems to piss off everything around him. So, coupled with not being able to be hurt and pissing everything off, everything starts attacking Barbas, which allows Constantine to just shoot from behind. Now, this is going to prove a very useful ability if they run into any more danger. The rest of the travel was pretty uneventful. The pair finally arrive at Haymar's Shame, and upon Barbas entering, so does Constantine. She has no idea what to expect, but has got her head on a swivel and her bow at the ready. Inside was hectic. The pair came across the thrall of a vampire. Great. More vampires. You know, the Dawnguard are starting to look way more appealing now. Anyway, thanks to Barbas' ability, he kept all the flak on him, and Constantine was able to finish off the thrall. The pair continued through, and this is where Barbas just truly shined, so to speak. He was taking hit after hit after hit and would not go down. The enemies were so incredibly focused on Barbas. They either magically couldn't notice Constantine, or they hated Barbas so much that they didn't care. Either way, Constantine was able to consistently whittle down the enemy until, well, you know, they weren't living anymore. The next major cave portion was honestly just more of the same. Barbas would charge out, and Constantine would simply shoot from the shadows. In her mind, they made a dang good team. The fighting grew more and more intense, but thankfully, due to Barbas' abilities, he kept all the damage on him, while Constantine would just keep shooting from the top, until finally, all of them would die. At one point, though, it seems Barbas' ability has to be magical, because this vampire runs straight past Constantine and does not notice her. I think the vampires and everything else are so focused on Barbas, the idea of anything else being around them is null and void.
Your death brings me honor.
The pair finally make it to Clavicus Vile's shrine, where Constantine calls upon the Daedric Prince. Here, Constantine learns how Vile actually grants the wishes requested by his followers, usually in a sick and twisted way. He then asks Constantine what wish she might want, but remembering Barbas' command, she just goes, no, Barbas just wants to return.
So, what's your heart's desire? What kind of deal can we strike? That insufferable pup, forget it. Requesting
Now Vile's initially against this, but comes around to it when he tells us if we go find a big scary axe known as the Rueful Axe, maybe he'll take Barbas back. We agree and set out to find said item.
Well, perhaps there is a way he could earn his place back at my side. Maybe, but no promises. There's an axe. An incredibly powerful axe. An axe powerful enough for me to have quite a bit of fun indeed. If you bring it to me, I'll grant you my boon. No strings attached, no messy surprises. At least not for you. As I recall, it's resting in Rhinerock Burrow. Barbas can lead you right to it. Little Mutt might even earn his place back at my side.
Constantine exits the shrine and makes for the location marked. It's in the northern part of Skyrim, so her plan will be to take a carriage from Falkreath to Solitude and then go from there. It's not really a good idea to keep a Daedric prince waiting, otherwise she would just walk. The trek back to Falkreath was a pretty uneventful one, but it's also late in the day, so there's just no reason to grab the carriage and get going. Honestly, it's just time for a good night's rest before setting off to assist the Daedric prince.
To dead man's drink.
A good 8 hours sleep later, and a hearty breakfast to boot, it's now the perfect time to find said carriage and head on out to Solitude.
Climbing back and we'll be off. There once was a hero named Ragnar the Red who came riding to Run from old Rorik State.
Arriving near Solitude, Constantine had a quick change of plans. It had been a while since she had visited the museum, and she had been sending back a lot of different items and artifacts. As well, she remembers that Aryan had given her a key to the safe house and she'd been wanting to check that out. Dealing with the artifacts, though, Aryan probably wasn't touching them, so she decided she needed to make the detour and get those set up in the museum. Back at the museum, Constantine headed towards the back where all the items she had sent would be collected. She unpackaged them and got to work placing them in the museum. And by her placing them, what she really means is the magic sorting system Aryan had set up that basically does it for her. Afterwards, she's going to head over to the library so that she can kind of put away all the necessary books as well. Upon completion, she's told what's been magically placed, and happy with the amount, she then heads to the massive library in the back. Here, she's going to be able to store the rest of the books she has that she no longer needs to be carrying around. Once all the books are put away, and yes, she is a book collector, because of course she is, she goes and speaks with Aryan, who mentions that there is a sort of stash set up in the safe house for her. This is in part because he made the assumption that she was going to be carrying around a lot of lesser relics that she needed to sell off quickly but might not be able to with the merchants directly. So he set this up, starting off at about 30% their total. That'll go up in time. Now Constantine loves this idea because it means she can it's a one-stop shop. She goes, drops the stuff off, leaves, and Aryan sells it on her behalf. Speaking of the safe house, let's go check that out. Now, the safe house is awesome. It has all the necessary crafting stations, and she can even store materials there as needed. It's more than that, though. Outside of the stash that Aryan gave her, it's just another location where she can rest her head and study her crafts, mostly alchemy and magic. Most importantly, though, Aryan created this quick swap dresser thing. So this has to be some special elven magic, but the basic idea, as she understands it, is she can load the dresser up with different sets of clothing or armor, and then from anywhere in Skyrim, she can switch her outfit with other outfits, meaning she won't have to carry around different armor or clothing sets. Her intent will be to create enchanted outfits for crafting purposes, as well as getting several other sets for other needs, including fancy clothing for if she ever has to, sneak into somewhere fancy. She'll probably create a heavy armor set for when she wants to start training heavy armor. But anyways, the day is not getting younger, and she still needs to find a giant axe for a Daedric prince. As we make our way to the cave, Constantine comes across a rather interesting couple. They appear to be arguing about a wedding. So there's this woman named Vittoria Vici who's having a wedding here in Solitude. She also, well, at least according to the guy, is the Emperor's cousin. So, as Constantine continues onwards, she sort of thinks to herself, wondering if the wedding will be public, especially with such public figures, or assuming public figures. She's never heard of this Vici woman before, but assuming public figure, maybe the reception will be public and she can make contact with Vici? Honestly, Constantine just thinks to herself how useful it would be to have someone like that in her back pocket, and who would be able to go and, talk to the Emperor on her behalf. Hey, what a way to get better contracts, right? The rest of the way was uneventful, but as Constantine neared the cave, she knew nothing good would come of this. Of the stories she heard about the Daedra, it was honestly better to shoot first to ask questions later. There would be no second chances. Upon entering, she was greeted to a small, scamp bodyguard. Definitely a lesser Daedra that went down easily. She thanks her luck it wasn't anything more. Continuing through the cave, she spots a man, hunched over an enchanting table doing something. On the far table, she can see the item, the rueful axe, as requested by Vile himself. The man doesn't notice her, and he's still hunched over the enchantment table. There was no thought that went through her head, just pure instinct, putting 2 arrows in his back, killing him. She approaches the body to loot what she can. She had no idea who the man was, but if he was here, in this cave, it couldn't have been for a good reason. She doesn't regret the kill, of course, more so just continues to feel uneasy in the cave, as if there's just one more trap, one more person, just waiting for her. The hairs on her neck stand on edge. She approaches the rueful axe, a large, 2-handed blade with wolves on either side. Power crackles from it. She can feel its weight as she picks it up. This thing can do some heavy damage. She continues on through the mage's quarters. Anybody who has a Daedric artifact just lying about must have other items worth taking. Maybe other artifacts, gold, or just things she can sell in general. Honestly, it would just be a shame to come out all this way just to grab one axe. Going through another chest, that's when she saw it. She was right. The mage was holding on to another artifact. This one is known as Meridia's beacon. What he was doing with collecting all of these, she was unsure. But upon touching the beacon, the Daedric Prince Meridia spoke to her.
Listen, hear me and obey. A foul darkness has seeped into my temple. A darkness that you will destroy. Return my beacon to Mount Kilcreath. And I will make you the instrument of my cleansing light.
Joy, another Daedric prince has now reached out to her. So what, she assists one prince and now the rest just want to, get in on the action? Shit, okay, she doesn't really have a choice. The least she can do is go to Mount Kilcreath and see what Meridia has to say. Before she does anything else, though, she realizes she's playing a game she doesn't know the rules to. She has got to do more research on these princes. If Vile has already requested her assistance and Meridia's now reached out, there's no telling what other Daedric princes she may run into, and it's best to be informed about what they do, and more specifically, any pitfalls to avoid and look out for. She leaves the cave with the intent of heading back to Solitude and take the carriage all the way back to Falkreath. As she walks, she considers her options. She could, of course, just keep the axe, but that's stupid. Then she has a bit of an interesting idea. Daedric princes and their items are bound to the planes of oblivion. Conjuration magic pulls from those planes of oblivion. So, what if there was a way to pull the Daedric artifacts from the Oblivion planes after giving them back to Vile? Her conjuration magic's understanding is incredibly weak, but it's food for thought. What started off as a brisk walk back to Solitude suddenly turned into a fight with wolves. Apparently, though, these were no ordinary wolves, as Constantine was about to find out. With the wolves dead, she assumes she's safe. That is, when two individuals come out of hiding and attempt to put her down, that safety is broken. It turns out these are werewolves in their human form. She knows this as she heard one of them transform, but the transformation either didn't take or she killed them before it finished. In either case, she's just glad she wasn't bit. No lycanthropy for her today. She finally makes it down the mountain and inadvertently stumbles across Mount Falkreath. Meridia calls out to her again, and mostly out of curiosity, Constantine walks up and places the beacon on the pedestal. She is then either mentally or physically, she couldn't really tell, transported high up in the sky where she can see the whole of Skyrim. Here, Meridia speaks to her face to glowing orb. Daedric princes are weird. Mount Falkreath is apparently her temple. This has since been overrun by the undead and a mage named Malcor, or something like that. Meridia wants us to go into the temple, kill him, and retrieve her artifact, bringing light back to her temple. Not wanting to help another Daedra out right now, Constantine gives her a mildly sarcastic answer. That was the wrong choice, as she's almost scolded for it. And scolding for Daedra could mean simply telling them they're a bad person, to being thrown 50 feet in the air and splatting right into the ground. So, note to self, don't be an ass to the Daedra. She chooses to help Meridia, although not really of her own accord, more so for her safety, but not right now. If it's been this long that Malcar's been in there, she can wait a bit longer. Constantine still has to finish her first Daedric contract.
But if you are wise, you will heed my bidding.
Back on solid ground, Constantine again questions how and why she's getting mixed up with these Daedric princes. More specifically, though, why it seems they're more asking her for help than trying to make some backwards deal that'll get her killed, or so they can take her soul. Either they sense something, or they really are hurting. In either case, she makes a note to try to help where she can, but also keeps a firm distance from them. You never know when having a Daedric prince in your back pocket will help. The rest is pretty easy. She makes it back to the carriage and quickly goes to Falkreath. She arrives in the early evening. She had planned to go to sleep, but would much prefer to not be sleeping with a Daedric artifact in her back pocket that was specifically requested by a prince who is known for his pranks. She leaves Falkreath with the full intent to not stop, but comes across a strange man with even stranger colored skin. He calls himself one of the afflicted and served under, oh no, another Daedric prince. Periite this time. She wants nothing to do with a third prince today, but the man tells her if she's curious to talk to Kesh. Who is Kesh? Where is Kesh? What is Kesh? Too many questions, and this man is clearly not going to answer any of them. She jots down the name and continues on for the cave. She just wants to get this contract done with. She arrives back at the cave. This ordeal is almost done with. As she enters, she goes before Vile's statue and calls out to him. He responds.
Splendid. Excellent work. A hero and his faithful companion retrieving the ancient artifact for the prince. It's almost storybook.
He taunts and patronizes her. There's a plan somewhere. She needs to stay alert.
I suppose I could be persuaded to let you keep it, but only if you use the axe to kill Barbas. Simple as that.
There it is. The second shoe is dropped. He wants his power back, but doesn't want Barbas around. Kill him, Vile can just absorb the power back into himself.
You're no fun at all.
That's not going to
Guess
happen.
I'll have to make my own fun elsewhere. And with the pup back, I'll be restored to my full power. There's a whole world just waiting for me. I knew I could trust you. Yeah, dog gets master, master gets cosmic axe. Everyone's happy. Just get over here, mutt. Don't worry, I'll make sure he sees the light. I trusted you, now you trust me. Ah, that feels so much better. You forget how nice supreme power feels until you've been stuck in a cave for a few years. It's a shame you wished for something so dull as me taking back the mutt. Quite the lack of imagination on your part. A lack of ambition like that really ought to be punished. Perhaps by turning you into a worm, or maybe a few decades, Oh, fine. Have my boon and be done with it. Got more interesting deals to make anyway.
It seemed Barbas actually came through for Constantine, and in the end, she got a more powerful artifact, the Mask of Clavicus Vile. What happens if she puts it on? It's roomy, spacey, but there's a complete absence of noise. She hears nothing, and she did not like that. Nope, nope, nope. Get that off. Get that off. She heads for the exit. With night having fully taken hold, she looks up and sees the beautiful stars dancing around her. The weight of the Daedric Prince's request finally off her shoulders. She can breathe a little easier. She'll need to bring the mask to the museum. No way she's going to just send this via the transport system. It's too important. She heads for the nearest town, that of course being Helgen in this case. It's been a long day and a longer night, and she desperately needs sleep. And that's where we're going to leave our heroine for today. Thank you all for watching. So I'm thinking about adding on so you can interact with Constantine and the series more, but I'm not really sure how yet. I'm looking at maybe a website with a journal and like a stats page so you can kind of follow her adventure that way. Or, I don't know, like an Instagram page, although that would be admittedly kind of dumb, but also really funny. I'm not really sure yet. So let me know down below what you guys think, what you guys would want. I can't promise anything, but you never know. And in any case, though, truly thank you all again for watching. Remember to subscribe so you can keep up to date for when the next video drops, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.